I have just changed the lens of the camera to play with the lenses and get to know them better. Does it look better or worse? Here I cannot zoom in so you can see me from further. Yeah, and it's a bit cold today, so I put this, even though I'm in the jungle, but last night was probably the coldest night I have experienced here. It was raining a lot and it's quite cool today. So what have we been talking about? Yeah. So for most of the people, it is they cannot understand. What do you do? Half a year, all by yourself, all alone. Don't you get bored? Don't you get afraid? Don't you get lonely? Well, in the beginning, of course, when you start your retreats, when you start working on yourself, when your, let's say, spiritual path starts, when you start facing your things, then of course you go into retreat, you will face all of those things. You will face fear, you will face loneliness, you will have to face boredom. It won't be easy. It won't be easy. But every time you face those things, you will be transforming those negative emotions, such as fear. You will be understanding them, how they are, where they are coming from, and by facing and by understanding, you will be transforming those emotions into consciousness, into light, into energy, into freedom, into expansion. It's like alchemy, right? The transformation of one thing into another. So when you are working upon yourself, you are transforming those bad emotions, those all of the bad things in you. You are transforming them into the opposite, into something which is good, something which gives you freedom, something which gives you light, which gives you joy, which gives you life, I would say. And you cannot imagine this. It's impossible to imagine this because mind, mind cannot understand or even imagine. Well, it can imagine enlightened state, but it will just only project its own projections. Like, okay, you think, okay, I will go into, uh, I will meditate for a long time, living alone, and then I will be more peaceful and more loving, and more. I will feel also more energy, and and I will feel less stressed. And you kind of you have it in your mind like all of these things that, I will feel like this. I will feel, after working on myself for a considerable length of time on a retreat, meditating or doing whatever you are doing. But it is wrong. It is always wrong because your mind cannot imagine the next level of your consciousness. It cannot. Your mind can only imagine the level where it is now. It cannot understand anything that is higher. So for example, if you see if you find an enlightened being, an enlightened master, you will not understand how he is feeling, or you may think that you understand him, but you have no idea what his experience is like, because that is not your experience, and your mind cannot jump to that higher experience. You can understand somebody who's lower in consciousness. Your mind can understand it because you have been there. You can go lower. You can understand people who are lower in terms of consciousness, in terms of spiritual evolution. You can understand them. But those who are higher, you won't, because your mind has is no way for the mind to understand. And therefore, when you work upon yourself, when you go into retreat, and I'm stressing again and again, retreat, 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 retreat. In fact, you work upon yourself most intensely when you go into retreat, right? So when you go into retreat, or when you are working upon yourself intensely, the change that happens in you is not something that you can imagine, not something that your mind can understand. You may think you imagine how it is going to be, but in fact your imagination has nothing to do with the reality that you will feel and experience if you just dedicate yourself to practice. And so am I. I cannot imagine how am I going to feel after, let's say, 2 more months of this retreat. I cannot imagine, and I know that. I know that what lies there is beyond my wildest imaginations, but at the same time I know that it is way beyond and way better than what I can imagine. No matter how wild your imagination can be, I may imagine in 2 months, if I continue meditating like I do, 10 hours a day, in 2 months I will be like levitating and I will be feeling like this. You want, or I want, regardless if I start levitating or not, but the way I will feel and the way my experience of life is going to be will be way beyond and way better than my wildest imaginations had been. Because basically I'm not in the same line of consciousness, I'm not in the same frequency, I'm not in the same, I have transcended it, I'm in another stage, and that stage you cannot understand while you are here. You can only think here, 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 but you cannot understand how it is higher when you become, when your consciousness expands, when your higher freedom dawns, when deeper energies awaken, when deeper love is born. There is no way to imagine it. Or as I'm saying, you can imagine it, but it is not what it is going to be if you just continue practicing. It always brings you results. Your sadhana always brings you results better than you expect. At least it has always been for me so. Even if you don't start walking on water and clairvoyantly seeing what somebody else is thinking after some months of your intense practice, the way you feel within yourself every moment of your existence is just so way better so way more clear and blissful that there is no words to describe it. And my words fail to describe it as well. With your practice, as you go deeper, as you as you climb higher in your realization, you feel the blessing of life more and more. And the biggest thing is not like you may think that, oh, I will meditate for some years and then my default experience will be such as if I have smoked weed now. Like, you smoke weed, you feel better. So you think, oh, if I meditate for this and this much time, doing this and this practice, maybe I won't need to smoke any weed. I'll just, it will be my default state. I will feel good. I'm taking weed as an example, marijuana. No. When you really work upon yourself, when you really grow, when your consciousness really expands, what you feel, at least what I do, and I'm talking from my own experience, as you can see, it's not like weed. It's not like a feeling that is based on some chemical or hormonal change in your body. Like, for example, if you inject yourself with some, I don't know, some dopamine or some serotonin or some other hormones that make you feel good, it's not the same as what you arise to after practicing meditating for a longer time. Well, I'm sure after practicing for a longer time, these dopamines and serotonins and all of these good hormones, they are more in your body. You feel better all of the time. So in this way, yes, I should say yes. You are calmer all of the time. Your hormonal everything in your body is different. You don't produce as much stress hormones. Your body produces more good hormones. But the most spiritual change and transformation is not something that I would attribute to these change of these hormones or these substances in your bloodstream or in your brain stream. The biggest change is you realize what a blessing life is. What a blessing it is to be, to breathe. And not only to be here in this world, but to be. Because even after our bodies die, we're still gonna be. When you realize what a blessing it is to be, and you realize that you need nothing else, because the highest bliss is in the being itself. You already have it all. You have your life. You have everything. It's a miracle. Life is a miracle. You have it all. Yet you think that you can improve it by making more money or or having more adventures or more comfort or more something. It has nothing to do with the comfort and money. It has nothing to do with fame and sex. You already are. And when you realize that, gratitude becomes your bloodstream. You have more bloodstream of gratitude than of serotonin or testosterone. You become grateful for life, for everything that happens, whether it is good or bad, for good things, for pleasurable feelings. You learn to enjoy them more. You learn to be present and actually enjoy the person you are talking with, the kiss you are receiving, or the delicious food you are eating. You are able to appreciate it more, live it more, as if you can stop the time for a moment and just enjoy it more, be aware of it more. But at the same time, when bad things dawn, when bad things happen, when illness arises, when problems come in your life, you are not, oh my god, oh. No, you you are able to be grateful for it too, because you know that these things are also an expression of life, and you know that these things also make you grow, at least as a personality. On a personal level, it makes you grow. These challenges can be pretty interesting. These problems can be pretty interesting. It can make you actually unfold yourself into way more shining being than you think you can get into. So when you awaken spiritually, you are able to appreciate everything more, both good moments and both bad moments. There is no more boredom for you. You are not bored anymore. Because you can just observe your simple breathing and you will find the most interesting thing. You will, man, in a simple act of breathing, you will find creation. You will find the coming into existence of the whole universe and the destruction of the whole universe at the same time. In every breath, in every inhalation, you will find the birth of the universe, and in every exhalation, you will find the destruction and the dissolution of the whole universe. So it becomes impossible to bore you because because life becomes so amazing to you that there is no way, no place for boredom for you. This happens when you practice, when you meditate, when you do yoga, when you grow spiritually. And this is the biggest change, I would say, at least from my own experience. Feeling grateful, feeling blessed, feeling one with life. Feeling one with life. You don't feel like separate from life anymore. You don't feel like individual, a separate entity to be crushed by life. You feel like inseparable part of life, which in its turn makes you appreciate not only yourself, your body, your personality that you are still aware of, but it makes you also see yourself in all of the other beings. It makes you see yourself in animals, in humans, in trees, in everything. It makes you feel them. That makes you also become more loving to them. You can feel them. When they are sad, you feel their sadness in you. You may say, oh, I don't want to feel the sadness of somebody else in me. No, I don't want. Well, you feel sadness of other being, but at the same time, it's a blessing too, and you take it as a blessing too. Because you understand also why that person is feeling sad. and you understand that that sadness has no real basis. The basis is ego, is self-identification with the body, with a limited identity, and that identity, its expectations are not met, expectations of the identity or its desires are not met, and one feels sad. For example, one becomes ill or loses something important to him, and it is like a death of that identification, because that attachment, that identification. So one feels sad, one feels bad. But when you see it, you realize, man, you can feel the sadness of the other person, but you can at the same time see that the sadness comes from ignorance, from misunderstanding, from identifying oneself with identity, with ego, with separation, with the body, with the mind. And when you see it this way, you know that even though you experience that sadness of that other person, at the same time you experience it. That sadness that you experience and that feeling that you experience in you is different, is more like compassion. You wish that other being to realize the stupidity of that identification. Hmm? Yes. So these are the changes that happen to you when you meditate, when you go into retreat. Yeah.